beautiful people, and welcome to The Random and Wonderful, a podcast where we chat about those random questions that end up being wonderful conversations. I'm your host, Grace Simmons, here to support you on your journey of becoming a more grounded and emotionally balanced person. Today we'll chat about why it's important to name those goals. Sounds extra, I know. Well, you're in the right place. Stay tuned. Speaking of names, a few people have asked what exactly is an Amethyst Palaver Hut, and I'm happy to explain, and also what it has to do with coaching. And I do need to shout out to my sister because she told me to explain this and I didn't listen. So here we are. So my vision for the Amethyst Palaver Hut is a multi-layered encompassing resource for individuals who are on a path of personal growth. The Palaver Hut is a nod to my Liberian heritage. It symbolizes a communal space where issues are discussed and all parties involved are left with a resolution and a path forward. The actual Palaver Hut, the structure, is a circular hut and it's made out of mud and clay. It has a thatched roof that's made out of palm leaves. People from the neighboring towns or villages, it's an honored space for them to meet and have discussions. But the important part of that is they can do this without the threat of violence. So the amethyst I named it mainly because it's my birthstone, but it's either Greek or Roman. They used to use the amethyst stones for protection against toxic environments and alcohol. And this is straining the power of the amethyst here, but they would make cups out of amethysts, and it was supposed to protect them. So there you have it. The Amethyst Palaver Hut is a space for wellness resolutions and protection against toxic environments. So I was talking to someone, and it became a few people because this conversation stretched over a week, and we were trying to figure out the difference between accountability and ownership. So the thought is that someone can hold you accountable, but it doesn't mean that you have ownership. We later figured out that the emotional connection to your work, your business, or project, whatever that is what signifies ownership. You have more of a desire to see that thing succeed. For those who are just assigned a task or they're made accountable or something, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have that control, you actually have the authority to make those grand changes. Now, it doesn't mean that you're going to put out mediocre work. Some do. But it does mean that it's a lot easier to detach yourself from it, whatever it is, because it doesn't actually belong to you. So back to the question of the day. Why is it important to name your plan, your project, or upcoming task? Naming it invokes ownership, and it establishes that emotional connection to your goal. So even in creating something personal like a vision board or you're building your wellness plan, I encourage you to name it. I name my podcast Random and Wonderful to be inclusive of all journeys from self-doubt to confidence and discovery. I could have named it after myself, and there's nothing wrong with that, but Random and Wonderful is the best description that I can think of for life. There are frustrating times, there are uncertain times, there are heart-crushing times. But lining up the pros and the cons, life has been wonderful, even now, even today. And it's been pretty random and odd. During the pandemic, I struggled to ground myself in that purpose or passion. There were so many uncertainties, and it seemed really silly to try to create a plan for the unknown. That's the beautiful thing about faith. It looks like you're stumbling through the darkness to others and sometimes to yourself. But it's more like walking confidently towards a promise. Because I trust in God and believe in my purpose of what I'm doing, difficulties become growth opportunities, puzzles to be solved, and lessons to be learned. So the importance of a name. I tend to name my years. It's not a profound thing. I just don't do resolutions. I don't remember what they were by the time I get to halfway through the year. But I started naming the years because I had a really bad habit of trying to justify every single thing that I was doing. So if someone would say, hey, what's your New Year's resolution? I would just go down this whole list of of things to feel like, because I felt like I had to prove I was busy. And so one, I now no longer do that. Amen. Because that's a lot. But also naming the year for me means a lot more than just trying to list a bunch of tasks and activities and things like that I want to do, because they can be included under an umbrella of a name. So one year, the name was like working through transitions. So when I was trying to get out of the military, or when I needed to switch jobs, it wasn't just like an instant thing. And it definitely wasn't something that popped up in my head and I decided, oh yeah, I'll do this tomorrow. It was an entire process. And so that year was dedicated to that. Another year is like tending to my garden. And it's not an actual garden. If anyone knows anything about me, I have like 5 houseplants, and that is the extent of my green thumb. But there are certain seeds like networking connections or projects that maybe are just written down. I haven't really gotten a chance to start working on them. I need to put some focus on those. Again, it's not something that's going to take a day or two. These are like months of planning and preparation. And sometimes the review of all that is, this is just not something that I want to dedicate my time to. All of that falls under that umbrella. So a year of growth, sometimes it's really painful, and you need to just shift from where you are to moving to something new. This year has actually been focusing on making connections. So I love vision boards because it helps me visually see my goals and hopes for the future and all that. And so once I've created it, I will name it based on the year. So instead of it being just this collection of photos, I see my year of connections, which includes my business, the Amethyst Palaver Hut, this podcast, and traveling. By the way, traveling will always be involved. In all the different ways I establish meaningful relationships and connections. So what's your focus this year? We can start small. What's your focus this week? As we wrap up April and Stress Awareness Month, I want to share some things that have inspired me to live through these named years. So I've mentioned creating a vision board. I structure my vision board with 2 sides, as I see myself now and what I want to be. I love cutting up magazines, but pulling images from sites like Unsplash or something where you can get free images is totally fine. You can make a digital board. So creating those 2 sides, that current and future, works for me because sometimes there are personal goals that I'm still working on, or there are things I need to remember to let go of, and that's my goal for the new year. I always include exercise, eating healthy, travel, and budgeting. Those are always on my board. And it's not because I fail miserably at it. It's just there are certain aspects about it that maybe I've figured out a new way to practice, or I just want to make sure I'm keeping it on my list. I don't want it to get mixed up in all the other projects that I'm doing. So as a reminder, keep this board, whether you have a physical copy or it's digital, keep it somewhere where you can see it, especially for those days where you're feeling lost or you're feeling like you're falling short of your goals. I want you to remember that the creative and hopeful mind that designed this dream deserves that better version of you, so you can stick it out and reap the reward. Of course, you can create an entirely different vision board from what I described if you want. Definitely do what makes sense to you. But my suggestion is to tap into the 8 dimensions of wellness. Each of those affect your life, and more or less wellness in a certain area will keep you out of balance. So the 8 dimensions of wellness are emotional, social, physical, spiritual, financial, intellectual, occupational, and environmental. For an example, if you want to work on your spiritual wellness, you can include an image that represents your church, or if you want to invest time and money in your community, you're tapping into your environmental or your social wellness. So those are just some examples. I mentioned I would include traveling. I would add images of activities or specific places that I want to go to. Does not matter if it's a tourist spot. Definitely somewhere to eat, a spa, or somewhere to get a massage. If you don't have a passport already, or you need to get it renewed, or you do not remember if it's due, put an image of a passport on your board. Also, consider if you want to do a solo or a group trip. For the healthy eating habits or budgeting, I include images like visually pleasing food. So I'm not about to have a bowl of oatmeal because that is not going to encourage me to eat healthy. Maybe like an acai bowl or sushi or something like that, but just something that's that reminder, and it's actually like visually pleasing. If I want to save a certain or specific amount of money, definitely putting that image or those numbers up there is going to be a quick reminder. Oh yeah, this is my goal for the end of the year. Like I said, when you're finished, you name the board after your year, after your focus, whatever that is that aligns for you. So if you're interested in accepting the challenge of taking care of YOU, download the self-care checklist to get started. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. My name is Grace Simmons, and this is The Random and Wonderful. Please remember to follow and review if you found this interesting, odd, or impactful. I look forward to hearing from you. Please take care. Talk to you soon.